Hey, you might hear some so-called advice floating out there in the interwebs that there are individuals or maybe certain companies that have some sort of secret access to the hidden job market, like they're besties with the Illuminati or something like that. But in reality, accessing the hidden job market is something that really anybody can do. It's essentially getting that job offer without the traditional channel of applying to a posted position online and then going through multiple rounds of interviews until you're the chosen one. In the unadvertised job market, many times there isn't competition and the role actually gets created for you from scratch. In creating a job search strategy for this unadvertised job market, the first step is to evaluate your current network. Success really doesn't need to rely on having a ton of LinkedIn connections. So I have a question for you. Are your contacts right now, the first level connections on LinkedIn, can they actually make a hiring decision about you? Like, can they bring you on board at the companies you'd like to work for if there's a need? For instance, we've got a current client that was laid off from Verizon amongst, 1,000 of his other best friends. And I asked him how he was going to put his new executive brand to use. And he said, I've got a huge network. I'll be fine. But then when I was asking more questions, I found that almost all of his 4,000 plus first level connections on LinkedIn, well, they all worked for the same company that just laid him off. So there goes the advantage of that huge network. Now, imagine if he had been searching for a job confidentially before he got laid off. That big network still wouldn't have done him any good. So if you haven't looked for a job in over a decade, I know I'm talking to you, or you've never looked for a job at the level that you're qualified for right now, you're going to need to have some conversations. Like they say, you're going to need to break some eggs, but you're going to have to break some eggs with people that you don't know. It's not as painful, at least as it used to be. Gone are the days of sitting in Chamber of Commerce luncheons discussing the wedge salad. In fact, your next job might be one painless conversation away. And when I say painless, I'm not talking about a cocktail hour conversation at a conference. I'm specifically referring to online conversations. And there's a way to do it where you don't feel, icky. You don't feel uncomfortable like you're in a middle school dance and the slow song just came on and everybody panics. Remember those days? And you didn't want to ask the pretty girl across the gym because you didn't want to feel that rejection, or ask her to dance anyway. You didn't want to feel that Ralphie asking Lisa Simpson out and her rejecting him, that heart-crushing feeling. You didn't want to feel that. That's probably a little bit too obscure of a reference for most normal people. But no one wants that rejection. Nobody wants to look stupid in front of other people. So when you apply for a job that you know you can do in your sleep and you never hear back, you're like 100% match and you're ghosted, nothing. That stings. I totally get it. It hurts. It's like you're back in middle school and you got rejected by the ugly girl, right? Okay, so here's what effective networking for a senior role is not. It's not cold calling. It's not filling out any applications online. That is a complete waste of time. It's not asking someone to pass along your resume. Who do you know who's hiring? Can I give you my resume? As an aside, resumes really aren't that effective anymore. Nobody looks at them. Everybody's looking at LinkedIn. We still write resumes, but really it's to get that content so we can put it out on LinkedIn. 9 out of 10 eyeballs, LinkedIn versus a resume. So here's what effective networking does look like when you're looking for multiple six-figure senior level position. Okay, it's where you're only talking to people who said they wanted to talk with you and they're open to the possibility of bringing you into their organization. And by the time they reach out to you to set up that conversation, they know you're looking for a job. And the cool part is they're excited about that. So you get to vet them, you get to make sure that they are a good fit for you instead of hoping that they choose you. In fact, you're going to find that you will be the one who is most in control of the conversation. And here's why. When you conduct this type of executive search, you're actually in a lot more control of the entire process. For instance, in that exploratory conversation, that first conversation, you're going to show up to the call already knowing how you're going to introduce yourself for that person, how to build rapport with that particular hiring manager, what other questions you want to ask him or her, and what answers or stories would you like to give them when they are asking you questions. In other words, what are the accomplishments you want to convey in that half-hour, 45-minute conversation? And also, how to wrap up the conversation so that you've got another one scheduled before you get done with that one. And the hiring manager, on the other hand, think about this. They just show up to the call. They have no intentional structure for the call since it's not a traditional interview. In this situation, which one of you then do you guess has more control over the conversation and the flow of the conversation? And wouldn't it be refreshing to bypass recruiters, bypass HR specialists, the 26-year-olds that have no idea what they're talking about when they're asking you questions, or any other gatekeeper? Just have a conversation with the person who's going to be your boss. And even beyond that refreshing part, when you're completely prepped and you know exactly what you're going to talk about and you are supremely confident because of it, you show up to that meeting a very different person. So when you focus on the right people, things can actually happen pretty quickly. I'll give you an example. We had a client a couple years back, I think. His name is Lou. I actually have his testimonial interview on our website. So it was a few years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago. He was looking for a senior leadership role in IT. And the third day of his search, day number 3, he happened to reach out to the chief data officer at Etsy at the time. And I would say it's about a week before Christmas. And by the second week of January, he accepted an offer for the role that was created specifically for him from that CDO. And it was reporting to that CDO. Oh, and check this out. His base salary was more than his entire salary at his last role. That was pretty cool. I think actually total compensation for this new role was a little over double what he was making before, or at least it was either almost double or a little bit over. You know, it doesn't always happen that fast, like within 3 weeks or so. But you know, you never know when fate is going to step in, and it could be 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. All of that into your search, but when you're doing the right activities, and you're doing a lot of those right activities, and you're doing them consistently week after week, then it's not a matter of if you're going to find that perfect company and that perfect boss, it's just a matter of when. So what are the right activities? Well, first you have to do something. That's the biggest thing. The enemy of your current situation, your current circumstance, is the couch. Your biggest enemy is inertia. And if you do nothing, which people tend to do, they become complacent. But if you do nothing, you're going to be in the same place a year from now, and you're going to end up cussing yourself out about it next year. So here's something that you can start with. Here's an activity that you could start doing. Use LinkedIn. Everybody's on it these days. That's why I like to communicate with it. Use LinkedIn to find companies that you would love to work for, and then use that same platform to find the person who would be your boss in that company. Send that person a connection request and start with that. Now, keep in mind that sending a connection request, when you're doing it, just make sure that you're not selling yourself. Resist that urge to sell yourself in the connection request. All of the selling should be done or should be contained within your LinkedIn profile, which they will be reading once they receive your request because they have no idea who you are. So you're reaching the right person. Here's the overall strategy. You're reaching the right person in the right company that you choose to start a conversation with. And in fact, if you're branded correctly, they may very well start a conversation with you because they already see your capabilities And really, they already connect the dots between what you've done and what you can do for them. That basically is the beginning of how to expand your network with people who you don't know, but you would be very eager to talk to, and they'd be very eager to talk with you. Okay, so you want to do that, but you want to do it at scale, right? You don't want to do just one, or not even just 10, not even 20, because you can send up to 200 connection requests per week. Okay, and that's going to give you a really good head start. So as soon as your LinkedIn profile doesn't embarrass you, start sending out those connection requests, and then you can thank me later. Speaking of LinkedIn, if you'd like me to walk you through every step of optimizing your LinkedIn profile, as well as how to find that person who's going to be your next boss in a company you love, and then exactly how to have an unstructured, exploratory conversation. In the next few days, you're going to be able to join me for a 4-week small group program. I'm putting together a very small cohort, so if you're interested in learning more about that, it might make sense to get on my newsletter list, because I'm limiting the number of seats to this live training. It's going to be sent by private invitation only to the people on my newsletter list. So I got a link below to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. And I would be thrilled if you'd consider joining me and my coaches for this upcoming 4-week program. So until then, thank you so much for watching. I'm Tammy Kabell with Career Resume Consulting, and I hope this served you well. Bye now.